Airline Manager 4 Best Aircraft. This is from my forum, which is cheapbooks.cc. Go to Airline Manager 4 under Aircraft, and you can find these charts and you can scan them in more detail. This first list is sorted based on profit ratio. That means the amount of money that it brings in, which is the amount of passengers times a certain amount of money, and over the fuel cost, which I did at a fixed number like 800 or something like that. So the A330-900neo has the highest profit ratio, along with the 800neo. And then you got the B737 MAX 10, the B737 MAX 9, the A380-800, etc. So the best plane obviously is the A380-800, and the reason why is because it has a lot of passengers. It brings in a lot more money. You could easily bring in $8.7 million per day on a round-trip flight, even though these others have a higher profit ratio over the fuel cost. The gross profit is a lot lower, maybe 30% lower. But it's also about 40% less to purchase. And the MAX 10 is substantially cheaper. You can see it's only 19 million versus 131 million. So if you can get the MAX 10 at that low price, you get one of the highest profit planes in the game. The 400D is a very high profit plane because it brings in, you got 568 passengers, but the problem is it has a very low range of 2,900. So you're going to have to be departing flights all day, and you're going to deplete the demand. So you're probably not going to end up making money with that, and you're going to have to buy more marketing. So the Neos, the A330 Neos, the MAX 10, the MAX 9, the A380-800 are all at the top of the list. But this is only by one measure, which is the profit ratio, which is the income over the fuel cost. So we're going to look at some other factors. This is actually the same factor, but it's sorted by plane cost. You'll notice that the Saab 90 Scandia, very cheap plane, low price, it has a decent profit ratio because there's a lot of passengers and a low fuel consumption, and it has a good range. The ATR aircraft are very good. Usually the ATRs give you a lot of passengers and good profit ratio. The Illusion 114 and the 114-100, the only problem with the 114 is that the range is too low. You want to look at the range. And when you look at the range, you start to see the CRJ 200 has a good profit ratio, and it's got a good range, 3,500. Or for the long range, 3,700. You want to try, and once you get up to the 600,000 mark, you want to get these CRJs. You're going to be bringing in a lot more money. So I recommend you start out with the Scandia and the ATRs, and then move into something like a CRJ 200. What I flew was the CRJ 100 and the Caravelle 3. So here's when you get to the $1 million range, sorted by the net profit, which is the ratio of income over the fuel cost. You've got some that have a higher fuel consumption. You can see that this ERJ has very low fuel consumption, which means that if fuel is expensive, you want to get this aircraft. And also it has a long range at 3,700. So for the price, the ERJ 145XR at $1 million, 1.1, is going to be a good buy. One of the reasons why is because 3,700, if you cut it in half, it's 16. See over here, this is 1,650, but it doesn't have double the passengers. So With the ERJ 145, it's going to do a lot better with half as many passengers. This is also sorted. Now, this is sorted by the plane cost. So we are looking at the low-range aircraft that have a high profit ratio over the fuel cost, which means you're concerned about how much fuel you're buying. And we got these Tupolovs, which, people don't like them, but they come out pretty good. For $6 million, you got a decent range at 4,000. 860,000 per flight, that's really good. And then you got the Max 7, the Max 8, the Max 9, the Max 10. But look at how much money you got to spend. You got to be up to the $15 million amount. So I definitely recommend, once you get up to $6 million, you get these Tupolovs. And then eventually work into the Max line of aircraft. They have a higher profit ratio. Remember, the Max 10 is it's like the number 3 in the game. So once you get the Max 10, you don't need to get these other aircraft. However, you don't want to fly 2 planes to make the same amount of money as 1 plane. But that's what you'd have to do with the Max 10. You see it brings in $1.5 million, and the Aleutian 96-400 brings in triple the amount of money. So you want to get these Aleutians, which are $40 million each. And they have a good range at 10,000. It's a higher range than the Max 10. The $4.3 million brings in a lot of profit. And you only need to fly like 10 days to break even. So getting this is the plane that I flew. Once I could afford to buy them, I had a whole fleet of these. And then after this, I got the A380-800, which is a top plane in the game. So this was the second to last plane that I bought because I wanted to get the $4.3 million per flight. Get a lot of value out of your marketing. And you start to have a full fleet of aircraft. So now we're getting into some of the higher range aircraft. You see that the Neo has that high profit ratio. These are all bringing in like $5 million. A lot of the aircraft are bringing in $5 million. The problem with the B747-400D is that the range is too low. Not a lot of passengers. The range is too low, so you're going to deplete your demand, and you got to depart it all day long, and you got to buy more marketing. But otherwise, it's a great plane for what it does compared to the others that have similar specs. So of all these $5 million planes, you can get the cheapest one, which is the MD-11C or the MD-11. They're about the same price. So the MD-11 is another excellent aircraft where you can bring in a lot of cash, fly a lot of passengers, and have good range. You want a range over 10,000. You get into the Neos, the range over 10,000 doesn't matter anymore, but the Neo has that high profit ratio, which means you don't have to worry so much about the fuel cost because it uses a lot less fuel. So if you want to save money on fuel, you get the A330-800 Neo or the 900 Neo. Anything with a low fuel number. Going to be Airbus. When you want to bring in the big income, you got to get the B747-8, the B777-300LR, and the A380-800. The A380-800 bringing in a lot more money, and the B747-8 bringing in a lot of money. I do own some B747-8s because they're a lot cheaper than the A380-800. But does the cost benefit matter? It's a quarter less. Is it worth it to make a quarter less on the profit? It really doesn't matter. If you got a full fleet, the B747-8 isn't going to be the best value, but definitely the A380-800 is. So now we've got one more chart, which is based on the gross profit. So everyone, when you get a full fleet, you want A380-800s. The vast majority of my aircraft are A380-800. In fact, I'm going to tell you the exact number. I've got 164 A380-800s. And the reason why I don't have more is because I do testing with other aircraft. But the 5 million versus the 8.7 million, the 5 million, you look across and look at the price for this aircraft. It's half the price of the A380-800, which means you can buy twice as many before you have a full fleet and bring in 20% more income or 15% more income. The MD-11 stands out as being the cheapest aircraft in the top 20. The MD-11 is the cheapest aircraft in the top 20 that brings in over 5 million. This is round trip, not per flight. I did it round trip. It's a per day calculation. It's just round trip is what it is. It's not per day, round trip. So the MD-11 is actually a great buy at 56 million. I had purchased the IL-96-400, which brings in the 4.3 million. That would be another option for you. But you can get the MD-11 and be happy with that aircraft. Okay, if you have any questions or comments, go to cheapbooks.cc, look for the aircraft forum under Airline Manager 4. And there's actually lots of video games. There's probably 100 video games in my forum. And post your questions down here, or you can read the charts. Or if you have any requests, if you want a chart added, I could possibly do some additional charts. Like, for example, I don't have cargo planes yet. And I am the owner of cheapbooks.com, which is a website for books and textbooks. If you have any questions or comments, please post below.